I would never have imagined 20 years ago when I walked into federal prison that I would have changed my life and have become a success and proved all the critics, the haters, and the dream crushers wrong, that a person can change.
You know, now when I think about the folks that this organization touches, I think a lot about human beings that may or may have made a bad mistake at some young point in their lives, just like me, just like I did, certainly. And that 1 minute, that one instant, something may have happened that they've regretted every year of their existence, every minute of their existence after that. And they paid a price, and they were supposed to return back to society after paying that price. But the things that I think we stop thinking about, and a lot of things you hear folks say about folks that have gone into prison and are now out, are far removed from the reality and the existence of their lives or the lives that they should be, that they should have. If you stop and you think about it, and the thing I respect so much about this organization is caring about these individuals once they come out, once they've paid the price that they have to pay, whatever that was, 1 year, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, whatever that was, they paid that debt. Now they're ready to move on with their lives, and how hard that actually is to do. To live in a place, to have the skills to take care of yourself, to be able to get a job after you've been in, just to do those things that everyone in this room takes for granted. Paid vacations, job to go to, a home, a car to drive, are obstacles that seem insurmountable to a lot of these individuals that have gone through this. So I take my hat off to the Safer Foundation. I take my hat off to the individuals that come out and work hard to integrate themselves back into society, to be productive in society, as tough as that is. And I take my hat off to those business people and the folks who could be any place caring about anything, and they've decided to come here today to participate in that. So I would love to give you a hand in that respect. Now, after saying all of that, should I go to my prepared comments now? Thank you, Bob. I can skip these. It's a pleasure to be associated with the Safer Foundation and the Spirit of Safer Luncheon. This is a special event for a number of reasons, most of which I articulated already, and I won't have to read that. Safer Foundation appreciates their efforts. As an institution of nearly 40 years in Chicago and throughout Illinois, Safer has helped countless individuals return to their families and find the jobs needed to stay away from problematic behavior. I'll skip all those other comments because I think I've already captured a lot of them in my earlier statements that weren't prepared, that are near and dear to me. I must say this, and I'm so happy to have been recruited, drafted, sequestered to be a part of this effort today, but I will tell you, Diane, you've got a friend for life, a committed friend. You can expect to see me involved in this effort every single year. Maybe I won't be chairman every year, but I'll be involved every single year, and as many of my friends and folks that I can influence to be involved, I will. So, Bob, I've skipped everything, but I will go back and say, Bob.
Thanks, Jim. Thanks so much. We appreciate it. So, At this point, we're going to have our invocation, but before we do that, I just want to let you know that SAFER has had a very successful year despite the economic problems that we've all experienced. And as many of you know, this has been a tough time for foundations and not-for-profit institutions because many of our donors have been affected by this, and so they've had to take a hard look at their giving, and of course that has affected a lot of organizations all across the board. So for the fact that you are here with us today means so much to us, because it indicates that you have a real serious idea about the importance of SAFER, because the work that SAFER does affects all of us in one way or another, because the work that SAFER does affects recidivism. It means that fewer and fewer ex-offenders go back to prison because they have jobs and training and GEDs and have been cleaned up of their addictions. And so fewer people going back to prisons means fewer victims. Fewer victims means that fewer of our friends or ourselves are the subjects of crime. So it's really, really important, and it affects us all. So until we, and I'm preaching to the choir here today, so until we tell our friends and associates, and that's why if you look on your tables, you'll see some cards. And we're going to ask you to please fill that out before you leave. It's not asking for money, like many times you'll see, but we're asking for your help, for your ability to provide a job for an ex-offender or someone else. Of course, you can contact SAFER and write a check too. Diane won't turn that down. But right now, we're interested in you spreading the word to maybe your business associates or someone else to help individuals. When I go to downstairs at SAFER, if you've never been there, you know that the intake area on the first floor is where a lot of our clients are sitting. And I'll walk in, and they'll sit up like that, you know, surprised to see me there, as if, and whisper, "Is Bob Jordan an ex-offender?" You see them whispering among each other. "Is he one of us?" And so, you know, and then they find out I'm on the board and I'm working there. And then one or two of the guys will come up and pull me inside and say, "Hey, Bob, can you get me a job, man?" I'll say, well, doing what? He said, "Anything, man, just anything. Can you help me? Can you help me?" And that's the bottom line. They truly, truly want help. And these guys will be some of your best employees because they know the chain of command, having been in gangs. They understand it, and they will work the overtime. They'll do what you say. They'll be your hardest employees and the hardest workers. So get that word out to your friends and companions. So now it's time to invite a gentleman up that I love very much. I've watched his work, and if you have turned on television lately, you've seen him. And I was watching one night when he stood out in front of St. Sabina, and he issued a threat to the people who had shot a member of his congregation. And he dared them not to come forward. And he said, "We're going to get you." And I turned to my wife and said, "Wow." I said, "The police don't even talk like that." The police, as they are known. And he stood there and shook his finger at the cameras and said, "We are going to get you." And they did. So, don't mess with Father Flager. Let's get him up here to give us an invocation.
We all know Robert Jordan because his daughter is Karen Jordan and gave him a career. I love Bob. Thank you so much. Can we bow our heads in prayer? Gracious and good God, first we thank you for your goodness and your mercy, and for this day that you wake us up to. Thank you for the SAFER Foundation and all that support them in their labor of love to help empower men and women to take back their lives and to build their future. I thank you for the men and women of Safer who've made a conscious decision that their future is more important than their past, and who have determined to succeed and not to turn back. Finally, Lord, I thank you for every employer who's opened their doors to give people a second chance. First, because it's the right thing to do. But second, because every one of us in this room know that we would not be here today had it not been for the second, third, and countless chances that you have given each of us, God. So together, may we lift each other up. May we continue to build a city where everybody gets given a second chance. And now, Lord, bless the food before us and the hands that prepared it and the fellowship we share. And let us work for that day when everybody has food to eat and friends to share it with. In Jesus' name, amen.
Now, everyone, please enjoy your meal. We expect the mayor very shortly. As you know, he had to present his budget today at 11 o'clock. So I'm sure he'll be happy to get out of that room and not take very many questions. So he'll be running out the door to get over here to be with us. And so we'll be glad to have him. He's scheduled here shortly. We're looking forward to him. We have some other individuals as well. Enjoy your lunch, and we'll be back with you shortly.
We sort of had the idea that by helping an ex-offender, society would be safer. But my idea was to help ex-offenders help themselves. And nobody so helpless as he who does not want to help himself. And what I saw our role becoming is facilitators to open doors for them to kind of help, whether it was in the area of counseling, whether it was in the area of drug abuse, employment, basic skills and education, all the things that later came out, but it was to help an ex-offender to help himself.
It stands for looking out after a segment of our society that a lot of people have chosen to not look out after. It's an organization that works exclusively with a segment of our population that a lot of people have written off. So it's a very commendable work that the organization does.
Just to have an opportunity for the Safer Foundation to hire people that's been in prison, because the organization is basically to help people in prison. So to do that was a great opportunity for me.
To come to Safer and to get the counseling that I did allowed me to show my son a different side of me. I'm grateful to Safer to help steer me into the right direction.
Safer Foundation is a not-for-profit organization that over the last 35 years has been working with people who are seeking employment. These are people who have a felony conviction in their criminal history, but really want to turn their lives around and recognize that an important part of turning their lives around is going to work so that they can contribute to their families and to their communities. And so we help them to get prepared to do that. We also work with employers to make sure that we're understanding their needs and that we're meeting their business needs as we recommend candidates for positions that they have open.
What we do is try to do everything we possibly can to make sure these guys succeed. If you need tools, we're there. If you need bus passes, we're there. If you need somebody to go to counseling, we're there. If you need to go to school, we're there. Whatever it is, we're there for you. And that's what Safer Foundation is, because we have the heart, and that's the main thing.
Recent research says that those programs that start inside an institution and have sort of a seamless transition to the community are most effective. Well, back in 1983, that research wasn't done, but we had a sense, a belief that if we could start to work with our clients before they were released, that they'd have a better opportunity to have those kinds of interventions stick and stay.
How do you really help people successfully reintegrate back into normal society? Which means that you've got to have resources, you've got to have programs, you've got to have people who understand what the problems are. And then you've got to try and convince communities to open up and accept these individuals as a part of normal life.
through the Sheridan Drug Prison and Reentry Program. SAFER, for the first time in state history, is an employment specialist that's beginning to work with inmates while they're still incarcerated.
Just being in this program, you know, it's given me a lot of opportunity to do something I always wanted to do. And when I get out there on the streets, you know, I can show the job production what I'm capable of doing.
Before coming here, I didn't have any marketable skills, but being here in this program, I got something that I can go back out there and make myself competitive as far as in the job market.
An ATC is an adult transition center. In old language, it's a work release center, which means for us that men within the last 6 to 24 months of their sentence who have not committed rape, arson, murder, or crime against children can apply for eligibility for these centers. Assuming that the state grants them that eligibility, they can come to this program and be with us until the time that they're released.
Our ultimate responsibility is to ensure placement, job placement, in order for them to re-enter the society with a job, full-time job, benefits if possible, provide placement, educational services, provide a spectrum of services so that when they leave here, they're all in a better position than they were when they arrived to North Lawndale.
We can facilitate GED programs. We can provide a place for them to live. So it literally becomes a bridge between the prisons and the streets. And I think what becomes equally important is the follow-up after they leave here, that they don't feel abandoned and that we continue to work with them. Oftentimes it's emotional support we need, or they need.
The people here, they always say, you got to help yourself before they can help you. And I took that to heed and did that, and so far I'm okay.
Safer Return is somewhat of a neighborhood-based initiative. It's a demonstration project funded by the MacArthur Foundation in conjunction with the Urban Institute. In fact, this work grew out of some research done by the Urban Institute on people who were returning from prison in Illinois, as well as in several other states. After their research was presented, the president of the MacArthur Foundation said, okay, now we understand the problem, what do we need to do about it? And out of that question grew a concept called a justice intermediary model, which we're implementing in East Garfield Park in Chicago, Illinois.
East Garfield Park is the most impacted community than any other community in Illinois in regards to both crime as well as prisoner reentry. Part of the focus of Safer Return is really a community immersion focus, immersing the entire community around the focus of bringing people back from prison to home, to the community, to have a place where they can be productive, accepted, and reintegrate without the disconnect that we see typically.
We find that people coming out of prison need a new family to connect with. People who care about them, people they can talk to, people they can share their experience with, their frustration with, and keep them encouraged in going forward.
The program came to existence when Safer had this grant where church and Safer would partnership. For the last 4 years, we have found that people that have been mentored through the Saints of Vida Choices Ministry, that's the name of our prison ministry, it does work.
I joined the Choices Ministry as a client, and I went through that program for about a year with Father Flager and Tony Hudson and Safer Foundation, and it was a great vehicle for me because my parents or the family really didn't understand what I was going through, but the fellowship part of the mentoring, it was like you had a whole forum of people just like me.
Many of those that we find that are going into the jails, many of them do not have role models. They did not have them. That's why they made bad choices. And so now, if they're going to be given any type of new direction, someone has to come into their lives, in my opinion, that is going to have some positive input.
When I see a guy that comes out and he's frustrated just like I was frustrated, but I was able to succeed because of the choices I continued to make. And I'm not doing extremely better than everybody else, but it's just the choices that I'm making, and just keep continuing to come back inspires me. They say that I'm their mentor, but I think we all are each other's mentor, because I listen to their problems and I can understand what they're going through, and I can let them know the pitfalls because I'm taking that step ahead of them.
You know, we have graduations at the end of 6 to 12 months when a client be in the program, and the families come and the kids, and everybody's happy. I have had mothers come and cry and hold me and thank me, but it's not me. You know, they did all the work. You know, you can provide the service and the resources, but they have to want to do it.
Transitional employment is really not intended to be long-term permanent employment, but it's intended to give people a structured opportunity to go to work and earn legitimate income immediately upon release, thereby minimizing the opportunity for them to get themselves in trouble.
What we're seeing here today is a program that we came together with the City of Chicago and the Safer Foundation, a cooperative agreement to create an opportunity for some hard skill training for their clients. We teach them how special skills, what certain tools are, how to use this pole saw. We do species identity, we do this is this type of cut, this is that type of cut. When they're done with the training, we give them a certificate of completion. So they have something to say, hey, look what I did, look what I accomplished. I know something that the average person doesn't know. Right there creates a sense of pride.
If Safer Foundation wasn't here for me, I probably would be unemployed. I'll be wondering what I'm going to do next. They showed me they had no problem with sending me out there in the workforce, and they trusted me. They had no doubt that I could do the job, and I'm showing them I can do the job.
Even me having a college education, I was able to get interviews on my own, but when I had to fill out an application and put I had a felony conviction, it kind of makes it a little harder, makes it a step back in the wrong direction, like, well, we'll call you and see what we can do for you. Most people that have criminal backgrounds want to work. But if you don't give them a chance to work, you're doing nothing but sending them back into the lifestyle that got them where they are to begin with.
It shows that I can be somebody again. You know, I can change my life and be productive. Because what we do, it's a team effort. We got a good supervisor, we've got good leadership, and all the crew works together. We help each other, we have ideas for each other, and everybody listens, everybody works together as a unit. And we get a lot of respect in the neighborhood, and the people really appreciate what we do.
I'm a resident of this area for 33 years, and I've seen a lot of changes, but this is one of the best. These guys got a sense of responsibility now, and they know what it's like to be chastised and be without funds. And in order for you to survive, you gotta have funds, and you get it, they think, any way necessary. And their way is wrong. This way, it's everybody, it's a win-win situation.
Yeah, the bottom line is that you have a better opportunity to have an employee that will meet your needs than if you hire somebody off the street. And we've not heard that from one employer, we've heard that from many employers.
It's easier to hire a safer person. You know what you're getting. If we hire somebody that's recommended, a cousin, a friend, an uncle, a neighbor, you don't know what you're getting. With Safer, you do.
Anytime you go out to the street, it's very expensive to hire someone, and you don't know what that person, you're taking a chance on anybody off the street.
We don't have a lot of time to train people for the individual jobs that we have here.
What this program does is fills those skill gaps. Being able to operate a piece of power industrial equipment safely.
They came and visited me at the penitentiary, and once I got home, the next week I was working.
They genuinely believe because we have had an opportunity to work with that person and to prepare them to go to work, that they do better than putting an ad in the newspaper if they hire from us. We allow people who want to turn their lives around to have the support mechanisms that allows that to happen.
All right.
Wouldn't it be wonderful for some business person, for some store owner, for some manufacturer, to be able to look back and say, I not only made a good profit this year, but guess what? I turned some lives around this year. Isn't that real profit value?
In recent studies, the state of Illinois releases about 38,000 people each year. Somewhere in the neighborhood of 52 to 54% of those people are likely to return to prison in the next 3 years post-release. If people come to the Safer Foundation and we're able to get them to work and just help them to stay in that work for 30 days, that number goes from 52 to 54% down to 13%.
I'd like to see the work and the innovative ideas that we're developing with Safer expand on a community-based level, and I would like to see the capacity of communities grow to the point that when people are released from prison, there's a stronger network available throughout our state and high-impact areas that are learning from the models that we've cut with Safer.
Individuals may have missed the first chance, but somehow or another, you're trying to give them a new lease on life.
Many of the people who come out of institutions are hungry for a job, are hungry for an opportunity. They've become some of your best workers in the world, given the opportunity, the chance, and the support.
I've seen some significant kind of miracles in people's lives as a result of just having a simple opportunity like a job, like someone believe in them and be there for them.
I'm speaking now as a father. I'm speaking as a brother. I know how important it is for anyone to be reunited with their loved ones. And if whatever the circumstance that contributed that may have driven a wedge between them, I know that it's vitally important that that wedge has to be removed, because that child, from a child's perspective, needs that father or that mother. So I'm on a mission to reunite. That is what it's all about for me.
When we see people going home from that adult transition center, or they're leaving one of our program sites and they're holding their son or their daughter's hand, then we know that that person's headed in the right direction.
Ought we not to be a society that gives other people second chances and third chances? Isn't that what we all want for ourselves?
My family. Biggest thing, my single most driving motivational factor, my family.
Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to get our program underway. I think dessert is already on the tables, so that we can get everyone out on time. Hope you are enjoying your lunch and had an opportunity to see the Safer video, which gives some of the work that the Safer Foundation does. And I would just like to personally mention the fact I did a couple of stories a few years ago on the Sheridan drug prison, and the fact that many of you probably already know that a vast majority of the people behind bars today are there for drug-related crimes. Many of them aren't bad people, just people who have made bad choices, bad mistakes, but it doesn't mean that with help they can't get out and lead productive lives, and that's what the Sheridan program is all about, in helping them to be rehabilitated, get their GEDs, help them learn how to go in for a job interview, for instance, how to dress, how to show up on time, things that many of us take for granted. So it has helped to reduce the recidivism of people coming out of prison by tremendous numbers. So it just shows that with the right programs, the individuals can be helped, and it can reduce recidivism, reduce crime, and reduce victims. So I'd like to ask Jim to come back up, please, for a moment, because we'd like for him to recognize the honorary chairs, the vice chairs, the leadership circle, and as well as the sponsors who have helped to make this dinner possible before we invite our main speakers up. Jim?
There are a number of people we'd like to thank for their invaluable support to SAFER and to this event. I'd like to ask you to please hold your applause until the end of each group. First, I'd like to recognize a very special group, the vice chairs of this event, and they are as follows. ComEd, my very good friend and one of all of our great friends and citizens, Mr. Frank Clark. I know it was hard to hold your applause on that one. Let's try though. Harris Bank, Cicely Mistars. Education and Health Centers of America, John Clancy. Another great friend, Capri Capitals, Quentin Primo III, and of course our own professor at Northwestern, Mr. Stephen Rogers. Now we can applaud for that. We also have a number of honorary vice chairs of this event. We want to recognize our state officials who are not able to join us today as they are in special legislative session in Springfield this week. They are Governor Pat Quinn, Secretary of State Jesse White, Illinois State Senate Assistant Majority Leader Kimberly Lightford, Illinois State Senate Minority Leader Christine Rodagno, Illinois State Majority Appropriations Chair Donnie Trotter, State Senators John Milner and Kwame Raoul, Illinois House Deputy Majority Leader Lou Lang, and State Representatives Connie Howard, Dennis Rebolidi, Chapin Rose, Jim Sakia, and Angelo Saviano. Honorary vice chairs also include U.S. Congressman Danny Davis, U.S. Congressman Jesse Jackson Jr. Bobby Rush is not here. We're going to have to get him next year. And the Honorary Marcus Salone, Circuit Court Judge of Cook County. Please, applause for this group. Now, I'd also like to acknowledge the support of members of the leadership circle of this event. Chicago Board of Ed Chair Michael Scott, great man. Chapman and Cutler, Doug Hoffman. Applause for that group. And last, but certainly not least, I'd also like to recognize our sponsors. John Fallhaber, Cantor, Madison, Morgan, and Gordon, through Alan Cantor. Ariel Investments, our own John Rogers. Metropolis 2020 through Paula Wolf. Thank you, Paula. Walgreens, Donovan Pepper. I did see him someplace around here. Donovan, you always are in the right spots, doing the right thing for Walgreens. And Joan Varner. Please, applause for this group. Audience, I'd like to ask that we give all of these great organizations and individuals, political leaders, a loud, rousing round of applause, please. And Bob.
Thanks, Jim. Now, time to bring up the lady who is really the face of Safer Foundation. I've known her for a number of years. She is just as dynamic as she can be. Since 1996, Diane Williams has served as the President and Chief Executive Officer of the Safer Foundation. And prior to becoming President, Diane served on Safer's Board of Directors for 10 years. She brings to the organization a combination of business expertise from the private sector, along with a deep passion and commitment to provide opportunities for people with criminal records to rejoin society as contributors. This combination has allowed SAFER to become one of the foremost organizations in this arena. And Diane has served as a subject matter and an expert for several United States federal agencies, including the Departments of Labor, Justice, and Health and Human Services. She's a board member of the National Institute of Corrections, Advisory Board, the Illinois Workforce Investment Board, the Governor's Statewide Task Force on Reentry, and is frequently called upon by the Urban Institute and other agencies to lead and participate in training programs all dealing with reentry. So Diane has a lot to tell us, and she's worth listening to because she can give us a lot of the information about SAFER and making the Chicago area a safer place for us all. Diane?
Thank you, Bob. I think I'm going to be just like Jim, and my favorite part's going to be, and Bob. I'd like to thank each of you for being here today. I know how busy you are. I know how many commitments you have. And so for you to take time out of all of that to be here today, to support us with your presence, as well as with all the things you do outside of this room, is just really, really important and very much appreciated. We have a number of people in this room today, and I'd love to introduce everybody by name, but I won't even mention one name because then I'll get in trouble. What I will do, though, is I'd like to acknowledge SAFER's Board of Directors. They're here. If you could just stand for a second and let people know who you are. Thank you. We also have in this room a number of our clients. And so I'd like to also acknowledge them. Could you please stand for a second? I think some are being bashful, but that's okay. We'll allow you to be bashful. We also have in this room a number of partners. We have a number of SAFER staff, and we want to thank each of you for being here with us today, too. As I get started on these remarks, and believe me, mine will be short, I too want to acknowledge Veronica Ballard and Joy Dawson. I'm telling you, without their leadership for this event, we probably all would be doing something different. So I don't know where Veronica and Joy are, but thank you very much, and thank the team that helped them to get here. Okay, I have these comments too, and my staff said we don't know why we're writing these because you know you're not going to read them. So I'll have to hold true to myself. I did read them before I got here, so that's something. But I would just tell you that in this time that SAFER's been doing this work, which is 38 years today, we have learned a lot. But had we not had the foundation that was built by Bernie Kern and Gus Wilhelmy, who are sitting here today, we wouldn't have done anything. Bernie and Gus had the vision, they had the heart to get this work started, to have people go to work so that rather than doing destructive things, they could be doing something constructive, and I think it's made a huge difference. In fact, if I think about this past fiscal year, almost 10,000 people knocked on SAFER's doors asking for help. 38,000 are released each year from Illinois prisons. And so if you think about the number of people that came to us, you can see that people who go to prison and come home absolutely want help in doing the right thing when they get home. And we're only one organization. There's no doubt in our mind, all the research says that work works, that if people have an opportunity to go to work, they're far less likely to find themselves in trouble at a later point in time. But we also know that work standalone doesn't work. In fact, nothing standalone works. It all works when there's the right combination in place for each of those individuals that we're supporting. So if a person has a need for housing, it's going to be difficult for them to go to work every day if they have no home to come to. If a person has a need for substance abuse treatment, it's going to be difficult for them to go to work every day if they're not addressing that need. And so it's important that we put forth all of the right sorts of services and support mechanisms in order for people to be successful in their lives. Bob mentioned our lobby. I remember when one of our staff came to work with us and she walked in that lobby, she said, "Those folks look just like my brothers and my sisters. They look like my nieces and my nephews." And that's exactly right. The people that we serve are the people that you see every day. Often the media will portray an event that's just a huge event, and people assume that everybody has committed that crime if they're in prison. I would tell you my father was one of those people. When I first went to work for the SAFER Foundation, he had a difficult time believing that anybody but murderers and rapists were in prison, and that murderers murdered all the time, not just once. He had, I think, a very traditional view of who's in prison, but it was a wrong view. The people in prison are people who, as was said earlier, have made a very bad decision at some point in time, and in fact may have made more than one bad decision. But so many of them absolutely want a different life when they come home. They want to connect with their families, they want to connect with their children, they want to connect with their communities. And it takes a bit of help from all of us to make that happen. So the contribution that you've made here today, the contribution in dollars, the contribution in time and focus, are going to help us to help them. And so we again thank you for that. You know, it's good to do this work in the city of Chicago and in the state of Illinois. I would tell you that you've heard about the Sheridan Prison earlier, and you actually heard Deanne Benos, who's the assistant director, talk about that project on the video. And so that project at the Sheridan Prison allows them to have access to treatment, to clinical case management support before they get home, as well as to have access to job training and, if you will, job preparedness classes, so that when they come home, they're better prepared to go to work and to do the right thing. They also have that seamless support transition when they get home, so they have the same kinds of services when they come home. I would tell you there are not many states that can talk about that. But this city is an entity unto itself when it comes to looking at this work. The city of Chicago has initiated a number of different programs really focused at policy which will carry us for the long haul rather than for the short term. So when I think about that policy, I think about the, initially it was called the Policy Caucus, but now called the Collaborative on Reentry, that is facilitated by our own Paula Wolf, that actually, and I cannot forget Roxanne Ward, that has made a huge difference in bringing people together that want to focus on this work and helping us to build integrated strategies as opposed to siloed strategies, and for putting policy together that can have a widespread impact as opposed to, again, just a very sort of narrow focus. And so we are pleased to have been a part of that, as well as the wonderful work crew opportunities where the city has allowed us to support their efforts to clean up the city and the alleys and to trim the trees and to bring things into a better focus, to be in concert with the green communities. And they've allowed us to hire our clients to have them do that work in helping them to clean up those cities. And it's a tremendous opportunity that we're very appreciative of. Most of the time when people come home from prison, you'll know that they don't have a lot in terms of skills. They don't have a lot in terms of work history. So to give them what we call a transitional job, that is a job right away when they come home that gets them started, puts them on the right path, and allows us the time to help them get prepared for long-term permanent employment. That's how we use the work crews, and it's just a tremendous opportunity. So I get a chance now to talk about the Spirit of Safer Award. And I will read some of this to make sure I don't miss any of the key points. The Spirit of Safer Award is a special accolade bestowed on a select few individuals who have been invaluable to the success of our clients. Past recipients have demonstrated a profound interest and sympathy for the plight of those returning from prison and a desire to develop proactive solutions to confront the high recidivism numbers that have provided a generational threat to our communities. Past recipients of the Spirit of Safer Award include Representative Danny K. Davis and Jeremy Travis, president of John Jay College of Criminal Justice in New York. Since taking office in the late 1980s, Mayor Daley has provided a compassionate ear and an innovative mind. Under Mayor Daley's leadership, Chicago became one of the first cities to remove the have you been convicted of a crime box from the first page of a city job application. This has made it easier. That's right. This has made it easier for people who have paid their debts to society to have a fair shot during the hiring process. SAFER is currently working on implementing this protocol for state applicants as well. For many years, SAFER has enjoyed an invaluable partnership with the city. We've established, as I mentioned earlier, transitional job work crews, helping to trim the branches and to clear vegetation away from the alleys. The city's just done wonders in cleaning up. I tell you, people come to Chicago, and I have to say this, we had a big conference here a couple of years ago, and in fact, they'll be back next year. And as people came to Chicago for the first time, they were amazed. They really had a very different expectation of our city. And when they got here and they noticed how beautiful it was, how clean it was, and how friendly the people were, they just said, this is not what we expected. They forget that we're a Midwestern city. They just think that we're a large urban area and forget sort of the context of that urban area. So I'm very proud of our city and proud to be a part of what goes on in this city. We absolutely need more leaders like Mayor Daley who believe in the value of second chances. Mayor Daley realizes that the best way to stop the vicious cycle of incarceration is to encourage those who are willing to step up and be positive role models in their families and communities. The Spirit of Safer Award is just a small token of appreciation for a man who has helped so many over the years. It is my honor to introduce Mayor Daley.
Thank you very much, Diane, for those kind remarks, and I thank you for this award. On behalf of many people that worked in my administration and outside my administration, but most importantly, I want to congratulate Bernie and Gus for two outstanding citizens that 40 years ago made a difference in our society, and that is a role model for all of us. Government doesn't solve or begin many advocacy programs. It's up to individual citizens. And I just want to thank you for your passion and your commitment of service to all those who are re-entering here in our society. You are role models for citizens, for all citizens to become involved in all our communities. I'd like to thank Jim Reynolds and all the sponsors and business community that are here on behalf of Safer Foundation. This organization has helped many, many people. And I think the philosophy is that we all have within our families, our religious teachings, when someone falls down, you don't kick them. You put your hand and you try to bring them up. And many times you have to do more than once. Maybe you have to do it twice or 3 times. But we have to realize there always is a helping hand. Otherwise, we don't want to live in that type of society. And I think Safer Foundation brings the best out of all people. And I think that is the commitment that Safer Foundation has made for over 40 years. It's important to all the business community and all those who get involved. And we're learning with the cooperation of Safer Foundation, dealing with reentry people. I'd be very frank, these are wonderful, wonderful employees. They're committed, they want to work, they're friendly. We're using them in all aspects of city government, SSA, special service districts. And you hear responses from people and they say, you know, they said good morning to me. I can't believe that, you know, and their friendliness, because, to be very frank, they want a job and they want to change their lives. They just don't want to become a part of a workforce. They want to become the workforce, and they're very honored and pleased to have that job and to rebuild their lives. And I think that's what we have to look at. And I think there's more to be done, you know, that inside a prison. There's more to be done in our education system so we can prevent more and more younger people from going into the life of crime. We have to do more preventions. We have to be able to identify more and more younger people. In this whole violence issue that we see, younger people killing younger people, I think we have to do more mentoring of younger people. I think we have to get into the homes and mentor the mother and the children. I think it's much more complicated than maybe you read in the newspapers. It is a breakdown of families, but there's a lot of reasons. Alcohol, drugs, and a combination of things. You know that. It's not as simple as people maybe look at. And no child in our city should ever be lost. You think about people talking about 9 or 12 or 14-year-old or 16 or 17, 18-year-old kids or 19. They should never be lost. These are still children in our eyes. I think that's what we have to remember. And I think the more we think about that, the more we do about that. And then how we can do this is to support Safer Foundation. You know, I know it's tough economic times for everybody, but everybody has to make priorities. And the priority is helping Safer Foundation. And I know you made a contribution. If you go back and think of a few more people to make another contribution on behalf of Safer Foundation, because what happens is many times during the winter months are tough months for people, don't have a job, or maybe they're only working part-time. So that November and December and January and February, those are tough 4 or 5 long months of people not working. And what happens to them? They'll fall. And when they fall, well, you know, all of a sudden they commit, unfortunately, another incident that brings them back, all the way back. And to me, I think that's why all of us should be proud of Safer Foundation. The things that Chicago should be proud of, and not the buildings you may see, is not the names you may read in headlines. is people like Gus and Bernie and Diane and the board of directors and all those that are working hard every day to make a better city and a better society. And to me, that's what being the mayor is all about, is meeting people like yourself. They have the heart and the passion and commitment to tackle these problems, and sometimes on a poll they don't stand the highest number to look at. They're not number 1 or 5. But this is always, in the eyes of most of us now, realize it is number 1. Because if we don't rebuild their lives, we destroy a life. We destroy another generation. It's simple as that. I'd like to thank Paul and all those who have been involved in the effort of getting data, information, and coming up with strategies, and not just government strategies, but strategies that all of us can agree on. It can be part and parcel of the strategy. It can work on behalf of all the reentry people that are entering not only our city, but throughout the country. So I thank you for this award. I thank you for the men and women that are working in government on behalf of Safer Foundation. This is a great organization to work with. They believe in their clients, they believe in their citizens, and they believe in their mission. Thank you, and God bless you.
I also have another award that I'm going to have the honor to award or to give out today. I thank the mayor for all of his kind words. His plea for support, I hope you will continue to hear. He was absolutely right on target. We do need your help. You have that card. Don't forget the card. You'll hear more about it in a minute. But I want to talk about the Safer Achievement Award, which is an award that recognizes an outstanding individual with a criminal record who has not only made a success of his life, but has also given back to the community and others in significant ways. Jeff's story should provide inspiration not just to those with criminal records, but for all of us as we hear how he overcame adversity. It gives me great pleasure to recognize Jeff Henderson, who some of you may know better from his Food Network program as Chef Jeff, with the Safer Achievement Award. When he was growing up in Southern California, Jeff organized and operated a large cocaine distribution network. And I'm going to deviate for just a second here, because I think that people don't often make the transition in terms of what folks can do in comparison to what they are doing. If you think about what it takes to run a cocaine distribution network, you've got to have a certain set of skills to do that. And what we know about in the corporate arena is we talk all the time about transferring skills from one environment to another. But somehow we forget that people who make mistakes and lead businesses in the wrong arena can also do good, if you will, in the right arena, and can lead businesses and help people in that arena as well. And so I just think it's important that we just step back for a second and recognize that the people that we serve on a daily basis tend to be very bright, very talented individuals who need some support in applying that talent and those skills in the right place. At 24, Jeff went to prison, where he served 10 years. While incarcerated, Jeff developed a passion for cooking and ordered curriculum from the Culinary Institute of America, which he studied as well as reading cookbooks from all over the world. After release, he worked his way up from being a dishwasher at Caesar's Palace in Las Vegas to becoming executive chef at Cafe Bellagio. He also wrote a best-selling book and currently hosts the Chef Jeff Project on Food Network. On his show, Jeff takes 6 at-risk young adults and commits to turning their lives around by putting them to work in his catering company, Posh Urban Cuisine. I like that name. He arms them with the knowledge, the skills, and ultimately the opportunity for a new life with a culinary career. Jeff is a vocal advocate of educating younger generations so that they avoid making the same mistakes he made. He's an inspiring speaker, and I've heard him before, so I know that's true, and clearly a very talented individual. It is my honor to introduce Jeff Henderson and to give him the Safer Achievement Award. Please join me.
Wow. I'm extremely honored and humbled to receive such an award. I would feel kind of selfish if I accepted it just on my behalf. And I would say I have to accept it on behalf of the many formerly incarcerated individuals across this country that have impacted and given back to the communities. I would never have imagined 20 years ago when I walked into federal prison that I would have changed my life and have become a success and proved all the critics, the haters, and the dream crushers wrong, that a person can change. And I remember when I was walking the prison yard in Terminal Island, San Pedro, California, as a young man, and the older gentlemen saw an opportunity to redeem themselves by seeing the potential in the young convicts coming to prison. And for the first time in my life that I ever been told that I was smart and that I had potential was when I was in prison. The first book, the first newspaper that I ever read in my life was in prison. And I can honestly say at 45 years of age today that prison saved my life. But there was something else in me that was turning as an inmate. I learned early on not to let the time do me, and I was going to do the time. And I went to school, I earned my GED. I became the head inmate cook. I co-founded a think tank in prison where we brought the brightest minds, a diverse group of inmates together on Sundays, and we debated and discussed politics, religion, race, current events. That helped shape my thinking, that helped change my thinking, which allowed the blinders to come off. And at that point in my life, I began to view the world different. I jumped off the victim bandwagon, and I accepted responsibility for my wrong that I'd done on the streets in California. It was my generation of the late 70s and early 80s that influenced a generation of killers and lawlessness and hopelessness and our young people that we see every day, not just on the streets of Chicago, but across this country. It was us that they watched manufacturing crack, drug dealing, gang banging, robbing, jacking, pimping, in the whole 9 yards. And when you have a young person, especially a young boy, who grows up in the house, who comes from a history of poverty, who sees his mother on the phone trying to get money to pay the rent, entertaining what we know as sugar daddies to help pay the bills, what do you think that does to a young boy? It creates this hustler mentality. It plants the seed for a criminal lifestyle, because no young man wants to see his mother prostitute herself to put food on the table. So those role models in the community shape the minds. The poverty lifestyle shapes the minds. So a young person is born with these blinders. And when we look at the young people on the streets today, probably 80% of them was not wanted, who don't know who their fathers are, who mothers gave birth to them because of a booty call, or a one-time event where they met someone at a club and hooked up with a guy because he told her that he loves her and she felt that she had to give herself up to feel validated as a woman. So this is the generation, the population that we're dealing with. And it took me to go to prison to understand the mindset that I had on the streets. It was in prison where I began to love myself in my community. And in 1991, when Ebony, the USA Today, and the Wall Street Journal start reading stories, printing stories about the effect that crack cocaine was having in predominantly African American Latino communities, it was at that point that I said to myself, I could never ever sell drugs again, because all the money that we were making came at the expense of young people within our community. So over the years in prison, I decided that I had to make something of myself. And when I got out of prison, and how I became a chef was a little funny story. I got actually fired on my job in prison. You do get fired in prison. Yes, there is an application process for jobs in prison. And I was put on the pot and pan detail in food service. And where other inmates saw punishment, I saw an opportunity. And I learned to cook. I became the head inmate cook and baker. And that was the birthing of my culinary dream. And I said, I want to be a professional chef one day. But I want to be a high-end chef. I want to cook classical French, Northern Italian cuisine. I began to write letters to many of the world's top chefs from prison. And a chef by the name of Robert Gatsby in Beverly Hills gave me that opportunity as a dishwasher, making minimum wage in 1996. And I took advantage of that opportunity and eventually became the first African-American executive chef to run a $30 million a year restaurant in Bellagio. Over the past 20 years, I have been committed to working with young people in prison. I was part of a teenage awareness program where we convinced the warden to bring in young people from the outside to talk to them about choices and consequences. And over the years since I've been out, I have successfully hired formerly incarcerated individuals at every position of management that I've been in the corporate world. Even at Caesars, they took my hiring privileges when I was executive chef of Cafe Lago and the Palatium Buffet. I hired successfully 50 formerly incarcerated individuals. The last person I tried to bring in went to prison for bank robbery, and my restaurant was right next to the bank vault. And they called me in the office and they said, Henderson, you know, we like your commitment to community. We like the things that you do, but we're not a rehabilitation operation. So when you hire employees from now on, I want you to bring them through my office. And I said, all right, sir. So I did my part, and I'm extremely blessed for all the organizations, all of the people like yourself here today that see potential and people like us. I am a convicted felon. I will be the rest of my life. And I have found ways and avenues to overcome the many barriers that many formerly incarcerated people face. But in closing, I want to put out a call of action to all the formerly incarcerated individuals that we need to step to the plate and go back in the community, and we need to re-influence and fix what we broke in the community. Thank you. We also need to hold accountable not only the government or different organizations. We need to hold ourselves accountable. We know who the perpetrators are out there. A lot of the parents are in denial. People in the community are in denial. My mother was in denial when I was selling major levels of crack cocaine. She turned the other cheek, just like many people in the community, because we saw the drug money, we saw the lifestyle as a one-way ticket out of the community. So in challenging you is we need to go back and we need to help our young people. We need to influence them. We need to change their thinking. We need to get those blinders off of them and allow them to see the world through a different set of eyes. Thank you very much.
I think you may trust me the next time when I tell you that you're going to have to experience an inspiring speech from an inspiring young man. Jim, can I ask that you come back up to the podium with me for just a second? I want to present Jim with a small token of our appreciation. He has just been phenomenal. Many people shy away from this. In fact, just about all people shy away from chairing these sorts of luncheons. And even those who sort of reluctantly agree kind of give you their name and they say, here's a few folks that I know, let me know how you do. And I have to tell you, that's not how Jim Reynolds operates. I know that he has just a lot on his plate. I know that he helps many other not-for-profit organizations. But I have to tell you, he was an all-out team player in putting this luncheon together. And we just are so appreciative. We just don't even know how to express it all. Just a small token.
Thank you all for coming out. We appreciate it. And thank you for your support. And we're 5 minutes early. So thanks again. Hope to see you again next year.